Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Marvel's The Defenders, Season 1, Episode 1. It's called The H Word. I guess we'll have a small spoiler-free section. It's kind of weird, this one, because it's as much as it's a new Season 1 and it's a first episode, it's also a sort of continuation of four other shows, which we've already talked
Right.
about. So,
But it definitely opens with, hey, in case you haven't seen the other shows.
well, see, I'd argue it opens more like most of this episode, because the characters don't actually, I mean, this is much of a spoiler to say, the four main characters of the different shows don't interact in this one, this first
Yeah.
episode. They're all separate, they all have their own things going on. And, and even to the point where I'm pretty sure they have different directors for each of their segments, so they all feel like their own show, which in Iron Fist's case is maybe a poor choice. But when it cuts to Luke Cage, all of a sudden the directing style is different and there's constant rap music playing. When it cuts
Yeah.
to Jessica, it feels like Jessica Jones, and when it cuts to
Yeah.
Matt, it's the more stylized, artistic direction, and everything's very dark and moody, and like, which I appreciate, but I also think they overdo it just a little bit. It's almost too different as I'm watching the
It's quite
episode.
jarring, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just almost a lot. Like, I think the transitions were good, like, because I think the transitions told me where I was going to next, but the actual scenes being directed differently were a little bit much.
I think that was fine until at a point when it was, it's cutting between them. Like, like you're
Frequently.
seeing,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're seeing their reactions to, like events and things. And it's like, oh, hang on, it feels really different, like between them. And it's
Yeah.
because it's like cutting between them quickly. It's really jarring.
Yeah, first half of the episode, the first time you see them all, the transitions are actually quite good because it sets you up for the next person, and you're like, oh yeah, that's how this show was filmed when it was on. Um, so like I said, we'll do a little bit spoiler free, probably short, but then we'll get to spoilers and we'll warn you before we do so. So, Defenders, of course, it's bringing those four shows together, these four main characters, to fight a threat which, going from the trailers and just what was set up in the previous shows, will likely be the Hand, which is this sort of secret. I'm going to refer to them as the Marvel's League of Assassins esque team that, all ninjas, and there's a little bit of undead things going on, some mysticism, but they're a big secret organisation, and we've dealt with them in a few shows, namely Daredevil and Iron Fist, but they've been sort of hinted for a long time. Sigourney Weaver plays the main villain who's running the organisation, at least in this season. We see her in this first episode as well. She's interesting because I would argue this first episode split into five things. It's the four main characters from the other shows, and then her because she's like the new villain character.
Yeah.
So her stuff feels very different again from everyone else's. Although with her, I appreciated it though because she is the villain. Like it should feel a little bit different. Like right away, you feel this different tone when she's on the
Right.
screen.
Right. It
So
makes sense just because it's hero versus villain. So
yeah.
of course.
So our stuff worked quite well. We get caught up in what all the other characters have been doing since, or just where we left them off, and for the most part, that's fine. I was kind of not surprised, maybe not the right word, but I wasn't expecting to like seeing like Jessica and Trish again. Because it only dawned on me once I seen them that it's actually been the longest since we've seen them for many. Because Daredevil had another season after that, and then Luke Cage was only last, about a year,
I know.
not even a year ago, and then Iron Fist, of course, was only March.
Far
So,
too recent.
so when
No, no, it's killing me because that was my favorite show,
yeah,
and it's been so long.
it cut to Jessica, and then she talks to Trish like in the next scene, and it's like, oh man, I've missed these characters. Like it's been so long. And I like Daredevil a lot as well. I do think Jessica's probably the strongest character of the four. She's the most entertaining, just in terms of how her personality is.
Yeah.
She's being awful to people. She's talking straight. She's been a bit of a drunk. Like she's just more entertaining than the others to various degrees. But no, it was fun catching up with all of them. I do think this first episode, it definitely sticks to the slow pacing. Although I'm not too fussed with that right now. I actually kind of appreciate the slow build. That said, I was a little bit worried towards the end of the episode because it was getting to the point where I realised, okay, there's maybe only 5-10 minutes left, right? We're getting to the close to the end of the episode, and I was starting to worry because I'm like, there needs to be something here that sets up why this is a show at the end.
Right.
The,
Because
the,
at the moment it's just catch up.
yeah, up until that point, it was still like everyone's separate, no one's interacting, and I didn't need them to interact in the first episode by any means. That's okay, but there needs to be something that said this is why they're going to have to come together. And luckily, the final scene actually does a pretty good job of kind of doing that. But it really was playing it close to the chest until that last scene.
It was, yeah, and like you say, it was getting almost concerning because obviously this is shorter than all the other shows. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
only 8 episodes, so it was a kind of a case of, hey, just speed things up just a touch because you want to have at the end of a first episode, you want to know what the show is about.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of left it right to the very end of that episode, but it did come in at the end, and I appreciated how big it felt once it actually happened.
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, right, okay, now I'm getting it now. Well, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I will say that I do think having all four of them in the same show, is actually proving something that we said during Iron Fist. Is that what's his name? Finn Jones, who plays Iron Fist. He is by far the worst of the four actors out of the leads.
yeah, yeah.
Like now, admittedly, he has the least screen time in this first episode, which is great. However, we just start on him, which was a bad start because
That was rough. Yeah,
I immediately went, "Oh God!" That said, his scene at the start had more directorial style in it than his entire first season of his own show.
it did. It felt a bit slicker,
A little bit
and
slicker. That said, the problem with his characters fighting is still very much a problem, and that being that all of his fights are the exact goddamn same. There's a lot of like fighting, maybe him getting the shit kicked out of him, and then he'll stand, his fist will glow, he'll punch, and it's over.
I hope that's sorted because they've been saying in the promotional run up that it's better throughout the show. By nature of, I mean, they've all admitted that during Iron Fist, there wasn't it was on a really rushed schedule. He wasn't training. They were doing the choreography on the day.
That's fair. I mean, I can sort of like let the opening scene of this away because you're kind of like catching up with the like this is the first time we're seeing him since his show. You kind of want to start with the kind of the way we're used to him before you start messing with him and doing other things.
Right.
I get that. I get that in a sort of an idea basis.
This moment wasn't really about showing him fight.
No, it wasn't. It was about saying, okay, he's back, here he is. It's almost like if we liked the character and we liked his show, it would be a fanfare moment. But because he's the one we don't like, it was kind of
Yeah,
like,
it's like, come on, let's just get this over.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was really weird on a technical sound level when he does that first punch. There's like no impact. It's really strange.
That's fair. Maybe that's the arc, though. It's like he starts off with no impact, but by the end of the season, we're all going to actually like him a bit more. So maybe.
Yeah.
That said, his other scene on the plane, which again made me roll my eyes a little bit because the worst episode of Iron Fist was them mostly sitting on a plane, and I complained a lot about that. So when it cut to them on the plane, I was like, "Oh my God, they're on a plane." Again, he sounded just as naive and as like basically silly as he did in his own show, where it feels like he doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. He's just making these broad guesses. He's a bit stupid. So it does make me worry that even throughout this season, I'm probably going to hate him.
My hopes is that the others are going to go, why are you chatting shit? Come on.
I hope that. I cannot wait for Jessica to rip him a new one. That is what I am looking forward to.
Right, and in theory, by the end of this, he should be less of a whiny little bitch.
And and it's not obviously the same character because the character himself wasn't a problem, but to compare it to the movies, I didn't like Captain America: The First Avenger. I thought that was easily the weakest of the movies before Avengers. But then in Avengers, he was quite good, and then obviously since then he's had good movies and whatnot. He's become quite he really has become the equal to Iron Man in terms of the MCU, and he's the other lead. He's like this is why it's Civil War, and it's those two that are leading the two armies is because he's the other big one.
Yeah.
No, I don't actually think I'm going to like Iron Fist as much as the other three by the end of this, but my hope is that by the end of Defenders, I won't despise him the way that I do now.
Honestly, if we come out of this not hating him as much, I'll say Defenders worked. Like it was a victory on their part.
The funny thing is, though, is even if it doesn't, I can still say Defenders works because if the story itself is still good, if I'm still invested, I'm still excited about everything. I'll I can still come out at the end going, I still hate Iron Fist, but you know what? It was still a blast because I like 3/4 of the main characters.
Right.
So.
Right.
Because at least here it's like, okay, we had 3 or 4 scenes with Danny, but then it cut to Daredevil, it cut to Jessica, and all this stuff. And it's funny, even just like Deborah Ann Will playing Karen, like we see her again and obviously she's a Daredevil character, but she's also going to be the second main character in Punisher later this year. Which, by the way, a trailer went up for just today.
I haven't seen it yet. Has it finally given us a date?
No, no date. No. That I could see, but I mean, the fact that they're even showing a trailer kind of implies that
it can't be. It's not that far. Yeah.
So So yeah, it was fun catching up all the other characters. We see Foggy, we see a bunch of other, and I think at this point I'm going to say spoilers so I can start talking about what the actual plots going on are. So full spoilers from this point on for episode 1 of Defenders. So Foggy's working for Hogarth. He's at that law firm because remember he had a falling out with Matt. So that's the thing that's going on. He actually meets Luke. So he meets a character that he's not interacted with before. I thought it was kind of interesting just to start with Luke, I guess, since I kind of went into his plot. We start with him leaving the prison, basically with all the help that he's given to like put away people from his season. It's getting him like a sort of early pardon. He's getting out of the jail. Which is fine, obviously he has to get out. I do think it was a little bit weird though to end his season on he has to go to prison and then the first scene we see of him and the next thing is, oh, that's him getting out of prison. And I get why it works from a character perspective because he wanted to make that choice, but no, I've done some things that are wrong, I have to go and pay for them in the system, I can't just live outside of it. I get that choice, but it's just a bit weird to, the first scene we come into, he's already leaving.
I can kind of see it have been really effective to leave him in just for this first episode, the moment at the end when they're all reacting, if he'd been inside still.
Yeah,
and then he'd be like, "Damn, I need to be out there helping people." That sort of thing.
Yeah, and whether it means he then breaks out because he knows he needs to do good out there, or if someone comes to get him because they need him, either way, like that may have been interesting. Yeah. But he comes back home, runs into Claire. There's a nice reference to his show where she's like, "Let's get some coffee," and of course that was a euphemism in the show for sex. And they have. I mean, I'm surprised Claire's not like broken in half, quite honestly. Like, I mean, hell, the table was even intact afterwards. I'm surprised. Like, I felt like he was going through the apartment
he
rampaging.
Somehow has some restraint.
Apparently so. But she did criticise him afterwards and said, "You've only got some potential." So maybe he was holding back a little bit, and she said, No.
Well, when we have the sex scene at the end of the season, table's broken.
That's the arc, yeah. At the end of the season.
That's his arc.
The start of the season, Table's fine, Claire's fine. End of the season, Claire's in the hospital with broken bones because he's got super strength, and the Table's just in shatters.
Exactly.
But yeah, so the plot, he says, so Misty comes in season. Misty's also in the show. It's interesting to watch the opening credits actually and see who's coming from each show, because like, okay, so we're getting Misty, but it seems that we're not getting I can't remember her name, Alfred Woodward's character, Mariah. That's her name. So I don't think obviously they speak about her a little bit. He's concerned about what was going on in his show, but I don't think we're really going to get her in this season. But I think it'll be that's what he's concerned about now. But obviously, once this shit goes down, it's like, okay, right, everyone's going to focus on the main thing.
Yeah.
So likewise, like Jessica has like Trish, and actually our neighbour was there, which I was surprised about. I wasn't expecting to see him, but it's just who's coming from each show beyond the main characters, which I think is fun. I think that's something that the movies have kind of avoided a lot of, is like they don't have a lot of the supporting characters shot for the Avengers.
Right, but the thing is, I can see a lot of the supporting characters kind of disappearing once we get into it. Like they'll be here for a bit,
a lot of them, but like Trish, Misty, I think Foggy. I mean, I may be wrong on Foggy. Colleen definitely. All those are all in the opening titles, so I think they're regulars. They're here to stay. Maybe not Foggy, but the other ones I mentioned definitely are. Claire definitely is as well.
Yeah, Colleen makes probably the most sense just from the sense, the idea that she's actually a fighter as well.
I think Misty, because I think Misty and Colleen, if I remember right, Misty and Colleen are going to be teaming up during the season, which I think would be fun because I like Colleen. I mean, they ruined her a little bit when she suddenly had this schoolgirl crush on Danny, but otherwise I enjoy Colleen's character.
Yeah, there was things that didn't work, but she was probably still the best part of that show.
Yeah. So basically, there's been these weird murders that look like suicides, but Misty's suspicious, and she's actually talking to Luke not because she wants him to go and be the superhero, but to be like what Pop used to be, and sort of like help, realign the young folk in the neighborhood and try and get them on a better path.
It's something we said while watching his show, but Luke Cage is kind of their Superman.
Yeah.
It's like no, this isn't about the superheroes. You got to go and inspire. Be the good person.
Yeah, which he tries. There's like a weird connection to like the brother of this victim, but also like knew the girl who was the witness in the first season. But he goes to see him, and he like tries to like convince him of being better, and like so tries to ask him questions about what's going on. And I'm sure this murder case will tie into the Hand. Right? I'm sure that's where it's going to go.
Because they keep saying they're getting these new jobs, and then they're vanishing.
Yeah. And he tries, and the kid basically just eventually says, "No, get out! Like, I'm asking you to leave." He pushes back after a little bit of niceties, and that's basically Luke Cage's whole plot in this, which is again why it feels very like all the plots were very separate, and they don't necessarily have endings for the most part. So we'll flip over to Jessica, who's not actively working cases; she's turning people away. But of course, one of the like a woman comes to her office and is like, "Hey, my husband's missing," and she's like, he's cheating on you, it's fine, like, just go. I'm not taking the case.
She's got it figured out.
Yeah, which, by the way, I love that her apartment is still wrecked from the fight with the pillar guy.
I love that you can see it, like, before it even goes inside, the door's still boarded over, the window, which was strange, because didn't that show end with her getting, like, a new window with her, like, name on it and stuff?
It did. Do you know, I'm going to make a small... this could be completely wrong, but I do vividly remember that last scene being, okay, so our neighbour's helping answer the call, there's a new window, Alias Investigations is open for business. I'm going to take a small little guess here and say that one scene is actually set after Defenders.
Could be.
Just because, he comes in and he tries to help as if he is, as if he does work with her, but she's like kicking him out, and I'm like, I can almost see that scene actually being post-Defenders when she decides, you know what, yes, I'm going to open the business again and do what I do.
Cause I don't mind, because obviously her being self-destructive still is kind of what we expect of her from her show.
Yeah, but it works in the sense that if it isn't set after Defenders, I buy that she just threw someone else through it at some point. It's fine.
Right. So I like seeing the door still like that, but then you go in and it's like there's still the giant hole in the wall, which cracked me right
And all
up.
of a sudden I'm just remembering, that stupid fight with the... Because I really like Jessica Jones Season 1, but the one thing I did not like was that stupid Paul, I think his name was, with the pill plot.
I couldn't tell you his name.
Yeah, but she gets a weird phone call, like telling her not to look into this missing guy, which piques her interest because, wait, that's not right. That usually doesn't happen when it's just a guy cheating on his wife.
So of course she's certainly going to look at it. That just guaranteed that she's putting attention into this now.
Yeah. And it's some fun stuff where she's like insisting she won't look into it, but then of course she does. And again, her whole plot is basically she goes to she's tracked him down to this apartment somewhere that he's probably hiding. And she breaks in, and she's there at the end when everything goes down, but she finds, like, crates full of, like, C4 and stuff. Like, it's very, shady, like, what's going on? There's more to it than this. And again, it almost implies, like, he, much like the guys that Luke Cage is hunting, or not hunting, but, investigating, maybe took a job with someone. Or maybe he's already higher up in it, just to say, given that he's got C4 planked in an apartment somewhere. And that was basically Jessica's plot. Daredevil... we see that he gave up being Daredevil because of Elektra at the end of season 2, and we see that he's doing a pretty good job being a lawyer. He's like fighting this kid's been wrong because this company was being neglectful.
Poisoned him, basically.
Yeah, something to that effect. He can't walk, or he might be able to walk again, but he's not sure. I did actually really like the scene after the court case where Daredevil, or I should say Matt, speaks to the kid and is like, and because he's went through being blind and he understands having a disability, he talks to him and says, okay, this is what everyone else is going to tell you, this is what they're going to say and what you should do, but this is the advice I'm going to give you as someone who's went through something similar. I appreciated that, because especially since the kid didn't just go, oh, thanks for the good advice. Like, the kid got emotional because he knew it was right. Like, he knew that everyone else was always going to try and tell him, oh, you can be better and fight this and you can do this and that. But this was like honest advice, and it's maybe the first time he's had honest advice from someone who's actually had the experience.
Yeah, it was really nice to see Matt just kind of cutting through the bullshit. It was like, look, they're going to give you all this shit, but there's the reality. Yeah,
it felt like there was a positive message on it, but it was also not sugar-coated. Like, this is going to be tough and hard, and you're going to feel miserable. And I kind of like that. Like, and that's when Karen shows up, and we kind of see where they are because she interviews him for the paper, which she's working for now. He then goes to his priest. He goes to confession and confesses that he lied to her, because she asks him, like, do you miss it? Do you miss being the Daredevil? And he kind of lied. He does miss it. And the priest points out that this is you've not really decided yet. Like, you've said that, okay, I'm giving up because of this, but you're not really deep down decided that this is the right thing to do. And obviously he's going to sit up at the end of the season. Of course he is, because he's Daredevil, and he's going to be needed. And when he goes back to his apartment, that's when everything goes down, and he's there on his own in the dark, and that's when everything happens. So that's Daredevil's plot, which I guess leads us to Iron Fist, is the one that I've left to last. Well, not last, because we've got Sigourney Weaver, but...
Because Yeah, who cares about Iron Fist? Nothing happens.
Yeah, basically it opens with him like he's chasing after this guy who has already been attacked by someone else. Who Elektra is like 99.9% the person who's attacking him because it's clearly a woman, and she's a badass. She's really good, and she gets away. Not that I think it takes a badass to best Iron Fist in a fight, admittedly, but. And then they're flying back, and like, oh, the one thing the guy says is, oh, the fight's not here. You're looking for the hand. The fight's in New York. You come back to New York, so that leads them onto the plane back to New York. I think the one notable thing though is that he has this weird dream on the plane. Because remember, his season ended with Kunlun was attacked by the hand, and they have this dream sequence where he's walking through the halls of Kunlun, and like all the monks are just like dead on the floor. It's like a massacre. And then an evil version of himself, or not an evil version, but the conscious version of himself is like, this is your fault, Danny. You did this. You weren't here to protect them. Which is what we were saying all goddamn season.
It is, which that I'm kind of torn because it's like, yeah, this probably is how he should be feeling. He probably should be going through this guilt.
But it is easily the worst scene of the episode.
Right, and also, don't we already do the whole guilt thing with Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that kind of his thing with the priest?
This is the problem, is Iron Fist mostly seems very redundant. At least the version they've gave is like, any comments I make about Iron Fist, it's not about the version of the comics. Like, I'm sure Iron Fist is better in the comics, like people, big fans,
Yeah.
I get it. All my comments about Iron Fist are purely in the version they gave us in the show, and how that's written, and how he's written, and how he comes across. And it just feels so redundant compared to the other three. Like, what does he offer that the other three aren't already giving us?
That's it. Like the other three, they all have their thing, don't they? You know,
Yeah.
like Matt, like I say, he is guilty. That was one of the big driving things, especially in his first season. That was a big thing for him.
He's guilty. He's the fighter. He's the martial artist. Like because Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, they're not really good at combat. I mean, they're good because they're indestructible, but they're not like. Whereas Daredevil's the fighter, and Iron Fist should have surpassed them in that because it's martial arts, but because of the choreography, because of the way they shot it, because all these reasons, it didn't.
Yeah.
So it was missing that, and he has less of a character in this show. Jessica Jones has more of a witty character. She's destructive, and she's got all these things. She's dealing with abuse. She's dealing with all these things. That makes her interesting. Luke Cage has got this more of an honourable kind of mission statement that he's became a hero of the people. There's a good couple of shots in this episode where people in the street recognise him, and like there's that when he goes to the apartments to see that guy, he asks the folk downstairs like, "Where's such and such?" And they're like, I don't know, man. And then they turn around and they see who it is, and they just like, oh, sorry, he's upstairs. Like they just give him the information.
Even out on the street, you can see he's this local legend. People are staring at him. They're like, he's back.
Yeah, they've done something with his character, and yeah, you can criticize like the second half of that season after Cottonmouth when it got to the Diamondback stuff. Yeah, it wasn't as good, sure, but they did something with his character.
Strong.
Yeah, the character was strong. Whereas Iron Fist, we get this weird dream sequence of like him feeling guilty about, and he wakes up and it's like. And then he's been all cagey with Colleen. She's asking what's wrong, and he won't tell her, and it just.
That's it. It's like I get why he's feeling guilty. He should be, but
now, to be fair, right? To look at this a bit more objectively, I think the other three characters are only more interesting here because we already care about them, right? Like, I think if you watch this episode without having seen any of their shows, you wouldn't really get why you care about Matt feeling guilty. You wouldn't really get why Jessica's the way she is. Like, none of it would play on its own. So that'd be a fair complaint. But at the same time, who's watching this without?
Right, and obviously they do a bit of the start, with when they're catching up with everyone, they kind of like introduce everyone. It's like, okay, just in case you've missed a show or something.
Yeah, like it clearly shows that Jessica and Trish are best friends. Like it shows you that. Like it tells you everything you need to know about her character, at least in just a very brisk sense from her one scene with her. Yeah.
And on that note, I feel like this is essential watching for all of the shows. Like if you follow just one of the shows, say you watch Daredevil season 1 and 2, but you didn't watch any others, I feel like you kind of have to watch this because where this ends is going to set up whatever a season 3 is for everyone. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I think you could watch this having only watched one or two of the other shows if that's all you cared about. But I do think that if you are like a Daredevil fan, you just watch Daredevil, you have to watch Defenders, because come season 3 of Daredevil, where he is at that point, because he's going to have the suit back on by the end of the season.
Right, even like for Luke Cage, for example, just the fact that he's out of prison, like already, you have to watch this.
Yeah, is he still going to be with Claire at the end of the season? Are they going to break up because it's not going to work? Like,
right?
Where are they at the end of the season?
And while that's good because obviously it's this connected universe. It has to feel like it has some progression. Otherwise, what's the point of watching this show?
Yeah,
It's
that's almost the argument with some like Marvel movies is you almost feel like they deliberately don't move things forward so that you can easily skip it if you have to, kind of
right. It's a
thing.
safety thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
But obviously, the problem is, hey, you've got to watch this, and they know it.
but the point I was getting at though is that like it's not like the Iron Fist scenes would work in a vacuum, but
But no
because
one
I'm coming
else's
in,
would either.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Whereas,
Yeah.
but having already had the experience with the other characters, I care about them already. So their scenes as a continuation are working. Whereas Iron Fist, I mean, it's working as a continuation because I feel the exact same way I did in his show, but that's not a good thing in his case. So
Yeah.
yeah, which I guess leads us to Sigourney Weaver,
Yep.
who is playing Alexandra, is her name. If I call her Ripley at any point, I do apologise, but you can see why that might come up. I like her already. I think her character's interesting. I'm glad that she's taking the reins from Gao. I'm glad Gao's not the... Because I think having someone like her, someone who is just an extremely good actress, but has the gravitas and feels a bit more important, is already helpful to the show.
I think it's also important to take it apart because Gao obviously was in Daredevil a little bit, but then she was a big part of Iron Fist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think removing her from the equation is just smarter because it puts all four of our heroes on a more level playing ground with this
It
specific
does.
villain.
She's also already a more interesting character because
Yeah.
right away, right, the first time we see her, she's in a hospital and she's told to disrobe. She's going for an MRI. She gets results for whatever test she's already had, and the doctor's like, "You've got months, maybe weeks. You're dying." And even with all your resources, with all your money, because right away, like she's dressed like a very wealthy person. Right?
Oh, it's clear. Yeah.
Yeah, so like her coat that's got the big tail that goes over the neck and like over the shoulder rather.
It's just the way she walks as well.
Yeah, like everything about her just screams like 1%, right? And she's told that no, even with your resources, you're dying. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And that's when we have that scene when she's in the park. She's in Central Park feeding the birds, and Gao shows up to talk to her, and she's like, "Okay, we're advancing the plan. Whatever they were going to do, whatever the Hand's plan was, we're speeding this up." And it's clearly because she wants to see it happen because she's not going to see it if she doesn't.
Right, I thought it was really interesting because she was talking about the history of like New York and Manhattan, and going like, oh, like this was all forest, and people can't imagine that anymore. And it almost sounded like she was there to see it, which is interesting because if she's dying now, that adds more to than just like if she's been alive that many years. I think it's interesting.
What do you mean, been alive that many years?
Right, like if she's been alive, a couple of hundred years, whatever. If she was around to see when this was all forest before.
Do you think
it was
she's
a
been
big
alive
city.
for hundreds of years?
I don't know. Like the way she was talking about it, like it was almost like she had.
Oh no, I took it more as a history lesson because Gao said, "Oh, you always loved this spot." Like it felt like she always comes here and she knows the history of it because she has that joke about how the what was it, $28 that whoever paid for Manhattan overpaid.
Yeah.
But the idea, like, oh, I'm surprised. It's a miracle this place is still here, that they've not just torn it down to build more high rises and whatnot.
Yeah.
So right away, it feels like she has beliefs. Like they're not completely set in stone what they are yet. Like I feel like there's more to learn about her, obviously, but we know she's on a ticking time clock, which makes her a little bit sympathetic, even though what she's doing is purely evil.
Also makes her more dangerous because she's got
It does,
nothing
yeah.
to lose, really.
Yeah. So this is someone who's going down with the ship. And she's going to, like, whatever she's got a plan, she's doing it as she's dying. Like you say, she has nothing to hold back. She has no reason to hold anything back. So that makes her more interesting. The fact that Gao's like, no, we shouldn't. This takes planning. Like that's, to do this quietly, we have to take time. And she's like, I don't care about doing it quietly. Like it was basically a response. Like,
Yeah.
it's go time. I want to see it. And then we don't see her again until the end of the episode when she's talking. That's when we properly see Elektra, who is now alive. Obviously, the Hand have reanimated her like they have other characters. We've seen that in season 1 of Daredevil and whatnot. And she's like, okay, this is what's about to happen. And this is when the big thing goes down at the end. So we have Jessica in the apartment with the guy who had the C4. We have Matt at home in his apartment. We have Luke, who's out in the street because he saves a woman from a lamppost that falls down when everything goes down. And then Danny and Colleen are just coming off the helicopter. Which, by the way, I like that. It's either just after Jessica finds the C4 or after Alexandra mentions that something's about to happen. The shot that it cuts to, which I really liked, was a shot from inside the helicopter. Before you even like pan around and see that it's Danny, and it just feels like this helicopter shot of the city. And I almost thought that in that very shot I was going to start to see explosions and buildings collapsing.
It kind of does feel like that moment, doesn't it?
It feels like that was about to happen. And then it didn't, and I'm like, okay. And it's when they get off the helicopter that things finally start to go down. And I kind of like that we don't see exactly what's happening. Because it kind of puts us in this place of the four main characters. Because the four main characters, we only see it from their perspective at this point, which is really just a sense of like an earthquake almost. Like,
yeah, it's like a really big earthquake. But like you say, it's this mystery. It's like they're like, what was that?
Yeah.
And so are we, because we don't know. We might suspect.
It's the inciting incident that's going to bring them all together. It's it leads them on the path. Okay, what is this? What is going on? I think there's like one shot of Alexandria where you can see some smoke in the background, like down the street. So there's obviously something going on in the middle of the city, like maybe like the epicenter, like there has been an explosion or something, but you don't really get to see it. It's very like no, like you hear what Matt hears, and because that's actually what the episode ends on. It's him hearing the chaos outside in the streets. Like you hear police and you hear all these other things. Which was nicely set up, because earlier on in the episode there's a moment where he hears things outside and he hears that there's a mugging or something, but he hears the police arrive and it's like he's almost going to go out and be Daredevil and intervene, but he holds
like, no,
back.
I don't have to.
Yeah, he holds back. But again, I kind of like the idea that whatever this is, it's going to be big enough that he's like, the police can't handle this.
Yeah.
On their own, they can't do this. I guess the only criticism you have at that point of the show's premise is that, well, if it's so big that the police can't handle it and it needs the Defenders, why aren't anyone else jumping in to help? Like, where's the Avengers, or at least the active half of the Avengers during this?
Right, this is where it falls apart. As a shared universe, there's always these moments, isn't it?
But I think up until this point, the movies have refused to acknowledge the TV shows. Maybe it's time the TV shows just said, you know what, screw it. We're going to do something that they either have to just admit they're ignoring us or have to acknowledge at some point.
Honestly, in some ways, I kind of view the TV and film as like alternate universes after a point, because the TV kind of roughly follows what the movies are doing, but they don't really do much with it, and they just kind of do their own thing. Not anymore,
no. They'll reference what's going on. S.H.I.E.L.D. will often like bring up.
But right, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s the big one though, where the movies have actively just ignored. Other than like one moment where they popped in, where they basically popped in to explain something. In Avengers 2, there was the where.
But that was in the show still. The movie didn't.
It was still in the show, right? The movie didn't acknowledge it, but it's like, okay, that happened still.
Yeah, I think that's what will make me really happy actually in Infinity War, is if there's just something in there that says, no, we know that, like, we're all fighting in space with Thanos. There's troops on New York. But we know there's some people down there that can take care of it. Like, even if it's just that, and they cut to one scene of just like the Defenders like tearing the shit out of like soldiers from whatever.
Right, exactly. But that's it. It feels really like S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Inhumans and stuff. Like, it's this big massive thing, but no one else has mentioned it.
Yeah, no, it's weird. But hey, I do think S.H.I.E.L.D. will reference Defenders though. I feel like they'll get a reference in that because they've done it before.
Yeah.
There's been cool little references between the shows before and cool little things, but
well, it's because obviously they're just run by different departments. Like the Netflix shows and S.H.I.E.L.D. still go through Jeff Loeb.
Yeah, no, that's why. Like, there's Daredevil references in S.H.I.E.L.D. There's and vice versa. Like the orphanage that Matt grew up in was the same orphanage that Skye grew up in S.H.I.E.L.D. So like there's little connective things like that. It was just kind of cool. Well, I guess to wrap up, we've went through kind of what all the beats of the episode were. I guess, like, are you excited by the rest of it? Are you pumped to watch more, or are you feeling like, oh no, this feels more the same slow paced fatigue of the Marvel Netflix shows?
I wouldn't say I'm excited, but I'm not kind of out on it either. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to see where this is going. I want more of the characters that I enjoy, especially Jessica, who I haven't seen in a long time.
I think I'm kind of excited. I'm excited because I think the villain, and for all the early reviews that came out, said that funnily enough that Sigourney Weaver character and Jessica were the two standouts of the season, whereas it doesn't actually surprise me. But like that. But plus, I do like Daredevil as much as I had problems with the second half of season 2. I'm pumped. I think that final moment, like I say, those shots of the city before everything went down, like it started to feel like it was kind of epic. Like, I do think this first episode suffers a little bit from feeling like it's plodding with all these like separate plots that don't feel super connected or anything like that right away.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, like you say, with the directorial style being different, it felt weird. Like at that end moment where everything's going down, especially when you cut to like Jessica, and it's it's really frantic, and like her camera movements often were, and it's cutting around, and then Iron Fist just kind of sit there.
Then it goes to Daredevil, and it's all that close over the shoulder of the ear where he's listening to everything,
and it's really red and orange.
That was the other thing. Yeah, it was see when Luke goes to the apartment to talk to the younger guy. Everything was lit so yellow. Like they were like, yeah, this is like his colour's yellow.
Jones,
God damn it.
That fan route was really purple.
Yeah, they were really doing that. Which
Max was ready orange. But...
I will say this: the opening title sequence, right, is definitely the one I've liked the most since Daredevil. Right, I've not been a huge fan of a lot of the opening title sequences. I do still think it's a little bit generic, but I like how it's playing with colours and all that. I will say I was a little bit disappointed though, because obviously you have the opening scene before the titles, right? And I was really hoping that when it cut to black to go to the titles, I was really hoping that "Come As You Are" would start playing, because that's what they've used in all of the advertising, and I was really hoping that the din 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 din.
I'm expecting it at some point in the show, because all the other ones that have done that have used the song.
That's true. Probably the hallway fight.
If it could be that.
Either the first time they all fight together, or it'll be in the finale when they all fight the big battle together.
And I think, how I said, I'm not really excited. I think I'll be excited once they're together. Like, it's getting there, because obviously this is the moment where I can see, okay, they're going to converge, but it's not there yet. But once they're together and on screen and playing off each other, I think that's when I'll be excited.
I don't want to spend much time predicting anything, because I feel it's pointless. We're going to have episode 2's review up tomorrow. It's not like we're going to wait long for the next one, so it's not worth predicting too much. But I do think that if it's not during episode 2, I think the end of episode 2 will be them meeting, because I feel like that's the point where you're hitting towards the end of the first act kind of area.
Quarter mark. I can see the second episode being them all investigating this individually, and
then at the end, that's what I feel like the second episode will probably be. If we're wrong, whatever, we'll find out very soon. But that's so. I think this was maybe a little bit meandering in places. But some of the elements that do work have made me excited. It was nice to see some of the characters again we've not seen in a while, and I did like the ending, which is the big thing, because that's kind of the setup for the whole rest of the show.
That's the moment that's supposed to get you to come back. So it's kind of a good job you like that.
Yeah, and I like Weaver, anyway. But I like her in the show.
I was going to say, I really like that she's this rich woman, because most of our heroes are kind of the everyman.
Yeah, that kind of works.
Other than Danny Rand. The rest of them are all kind of these down to earth normal people.
Yeah, the rest of them are all down to earth, and then Danny Rand's like the no man's man.
Exactly.
So there you go. That's episode 1 of Defenders. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to have these daily, and we're going to try our best not to miss a day. So over 8 days, you'll get all 8 reviews. So that has been episode 1. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/milefuzztv and do that over there. But otherwise, guys, that is us. So thank you very much once again for watching. Keep watching TV. We'll see you next time. And as coined by 1/4 of the Defenders when we reviewed their show earlier this year, our outgoing phrase is, "Have you got any vanilla?"